Now, first, is Keir Starmer's new EU deal a win for Britain? The Prime Minister and the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, announced a new deal yesterday. It's on every single front page. And here are some of the big issues. And we're going to go through them one by one. The first, of course, the big one is about fishing. Now, The Sun and various other people are calling this, listen carefully, a load of bollocks. But what is the actual deal? European boats will be allowed to carry on fishing in British waters until 2038, although we can fish in European waters as well. Now, in return, the next issue is food. So in return, red tape on food exports is going to be reduced. That means we can sell British products like raw burgers and sausages for the first time since Brexit. But we do have to follow European food rules on food standards. They don't have to necessarily follow ours. Now, the next one, a lot of people are saying is a big win. That's the Youth Experience Scheme. And that was also announced yesterday, though they haven't actually worked out the details yet. That aims to let young people travel freely, mainly for work and study. A lot of people saying that that's rather a good thing. The next one is on defence and security. And on that, we've set up, finally, a formal pact with the EU to coordinate foreign policy and share more information, which Keir Starmer says is vital in this dangerous new era. The next big thing announced yesterday is energy in this reset. Now, on energy, we'll explore participating in the EU's electricity market because we're already connected to the grid in any event. Now, this is one that a lot of people will be thinking of as they go on their holidays this summer. And it's a good one because for holidaying Brits travelling to European airports, they'll be allowed to use the e-gates again, as we could before Brexit. But will we feel a financial benefit? Well, the official forecasters, that's the Office for Budget Responsibility, you'll hear that a lot, that's the OBR, estimated that Brexit will take about 4% off our GDP. But, and here's the thing to focus on, independent experts only predict that the deal that we've just made will recover about 1/30 of that. That's from the combined impacts of the agriculture and the energy deals. Now, here's what Keir Starmer had to say about the deal yesterday.
Britain is back on the world stage, a new partnership between an independent Britain and our allies in Europe. This is the first UK-EU summit. It marks a new era in our relationship. And this deal is a win-win. It delivers what the British public voted for last year.
Now, James, is this a win for Britain? I mean, I referred to that Sun headlines. There'll be fishermen out there that will be deeply troubled. To give you one example of it, UK waters given to EU fleets until 2038. The Scottish Fishermen's Federation called it a horror show.
There's no way that this could be referred to as a win-win. This is a vanity project for the Prime Minister. This is something that he's dreamt of ever since the Brexit relationship took place. And judging by the latest polls, that'll be the final death knell in his popularity, his party's popularity, as Reform currently at 29, Labour at 22, and the Conservatives a damp squib at 17. So look, this is... on one hand, on the face of it, it seems sensible that we should be talking to our European neighbours. Of course we should. Of course we should be trying to make sure that we have good trading relationships. But in fact, we had an awful lot of these things in reasonable shape before this deal was done. Now what we have to do is we have to look at this thing called dynamic alignment. So I know everybody's talking about
dynamic alignment? It sounds like something you do to your back.
It sounds like something you should never do. Dynamic alignment is when you agree to somebody else's rules, but you don't have any say in those rules.
Right.
So this is the rules that we will have to apply to our food standards. So if everybody's championing and saying how great it is that we've got this US trade deal, this Indian trade deal, that means that you need to be able to adjust your own standards for the things that you are producing producing and exporting. But if you're having to apply European rules, which we would have to take them.
Sure.
So we're heading towards a Swiss deal. And there are many dissatisfactions with the Swiss deal and the way it works with Europe. And I know that we're digging up all of this old stuff.
Well, it's a lot of information. Just give us, an example of why this is, as you're kind of putting it, a bad thing in terms of food. Because you have to follow European rules.
So look, there are plenty of reasons why we want to see our food being able to be exported. Absolutely right. But if we're then told that we have to apply certain rules to the way that our food is either grown, or the way that we use genetics, or the way that we use different kinds of pesticides, or growing, then we have to align completely with the European way of doing it. If you agree with that, then that's great. But if you don't, one of the great things about Brexit was being able to use our farming industry and our ability to create and innovate in a way that separates ourselves from that market.
Well, I hear you about that, except you couldn't sell into the European market because they've got their rules and you have to abide by them if you want to sell to those countries which they set. Now, I've got to ask you, Carolyn, you've heard a lot of what's been said there. One of the things that's interesting is Nigel Farage, who's capitalising on this, no doubt, says that this is the end of the fishing industry. What do you make of that?
It's nonsense, absolute nonsense. And anyone who listens to Nigel Farage, the rhetoric will always be the negative and talking down the country. I mean, the EU are our biggest trading partner. Since Brexit, our exports to the EU have gone down 21%. It's nearly a quarter. And our imports have gone down by 7%. Something has gone really badly wrong, and that is queues of lorries at the border with food rotting away because it can't get across the border. People not able to actually do business with Europe because of the exemptions that have been put into place. This is a good deal for the UK. It's a brilliant deal for the Prime Minister, and I take my hat off to him because I think he's absolutely done a fantastic job.
James, you're shaking your head.
I'm shaking my head because this is the Prime Minister that has done so many other things. Two-tier Keir is back. In the sense that what he's done is more damage has been done by following an ideological move to punish those who are very wealthy, who have been leaving the country in droves, than will be increased by any increase in trade that we will see as a result of this deal with the EU. So if you really care about growing the economy, you don't frighten off people who are investing in this country and doing it. And he has done exactly that. If you want to employ more people, do you make it cheaper by opening the borders and the floodgates to anybody?
Well, I hear what you're saying, but let's wait a second. Let's hear what Joyce in Peterborough has to say about this. Joyce, is this a win?
No.
Well, that's a very clear answer. Why not?
Why not?
What's
because
that?
We voted for Brexit, and he's gone behind our backs and dumped us out of it.
He's undermining Brexit and the democratic will of the people. I see, your response to that. There'll be people out there saying, we got out of Brexit, not least to give people free access to fishing rights and that sort of thing.
It's not worked. It's been bad for the economy, and this is we are not going against Brexit. We are not returning to the customs union. We're not returning to the customs union. Our manifesto commitments is no freedom of movement.
In the same way that when Gordon Brown said, we're not signing a European treaty, then you're signing a European treaty.
Well, we'll have a lot more of this thanks to Joyce, and no doubt we're going to be having a lot of back and forth here. After the break, we're going to be taking more of your calls on this. Is Starmer's EU deal a win for Britain or not? Give us a call now with your thoughts. 0207 862 22. First, over to Bedfordshire and Fred. Do you think this is a win, or do you think this is a disaster? Have we surrendered?
Good morning, Mr. Rinder and panel. No, I think it's a good idea. The reason that I really came in was the fact that we hear so much about, as they call him, 9 jobs Nigel, but now it looks as though he's got another job because he's the owner of a fishing vessel. Is this commonly known? I
didn't know about this. So you're saying that Nigel Farage has got a fishing vessel?
Yes, this was reported on one of the news channels over the weekend, yes, but only on one channel.
Oh, well, we'll be looking into that and wondering what he'll be fishing and whether he'll be doing it under EU rules. That's very helpful information there, Fred. But what you say is that this is a good deal for Britain.
I believe it is. I believe it is on the whole, yes, I do.
Well, thanks very much for calling in. Now, up to Manchester. Tom, it was depending on where you were, whether you were in the city or outside of Manchester, you were either outside of Manchester, you were either very Brexity or very not. Where did you stand?
Well, originally, I was in David Cameron's camp to remain, and then after it all got drawn out so long, and let's have a re-vote, and eventually I was just like, right, let's get out, and then I was a Brexiteer then.
Right.
But no, I wouldn't trust sleazy Starmer as far as I could throw him. I mean, for years the opposition and Labour dragged out that whole Brexit deal scenario. And then overnight, we seem to have got this hush-tight deal from Starmer. I mean, there'll only be one person benefiting from this deal, and that'll be him. I mean, we don't even know what the deal
I hear what you're
involves.
saying. There's a lot of conspiracy theories and concern about politicians. But, I mean, we heard that perhaps Nigel Farage owns a boat from the previous caller, but I can't see how he's personally benefiting from this. I'm going to come to the panel in a second, but I do want to go up to Scotland, where a lot of fishermen are affected, not least the Scottish Fishermen's Federation, who described this as a horror show. Scott, you're up in Argyll and Bute. Do you agree with them?
No, it's a totally bad deal for Britain, and I'm in total agreement with the fishermen. He sold the British fishermen down the river. Typical Starmer.
Why is that, Scott?
Well, the whole idea of Brexit was to have our own waters for our own fishing. That's why the fishing communities voted for it, because they were promised it. Then there was a transitional deal.
Right.
And now that was supposed to finish next year. Now he's extended it by another 12 years. Plus, we have to pay £360 million into...
Well, I hear what you say, but, we're still able to set our own quotas every year, just as Norway is. Now, I'm grateful for your calling, because it does highlight, frankly, the view of the fishing communities. Last caller, Gina, you're in London before we come back to the panel. Is this a win or a disaster and a waving of the white flag?
To me, it sounds like it can only be a good thing. If you look at the way the country was after Brexit, the water, the condition of our water, the high energy bills, food price, everything just went crazy.
So, Gina, you say it's a win for the economy in general. Now, our panellist, James, is itching to get in. He's squinting. He's either got something wrong with his eyes or he's very cross about what's being said. I'm going to come to him in a second. But go, actually, to Carolyn, you first. You've heard what people up in Scotland are saying. Now, are they right? Is this a sellout?
No, it's not a sellout. And actually, the fishing industry is going to get, I think it's 360 million invested into them to improve technology around fishing. We set our own quotas, like we've said. But up until now, shellfish, we couldn't actually export shellfish. Mm-hmm. Now we can. That's a huge win for Scotland. We've got a phenomenal shellfish industry. So, I just don't understand why people... I mean, it's obvious from the callers, Rob, that it's 38-42, isn't it?
What do you mean?
It's people who have voted for Brexit that say it's bad. People who voted not for breakfast, I say,
a lot of people that have changed their mind. A lot of people that remain changed after the referendum, and they've evolved.
A lot of people are very frustrated with the delivery of Brexit and that it hasn't achieved what it could or should have done. And I think the last government has a huge amount of responsibility to take for the decisions that they took.
Negotiated a lot of this stuff.
And to an extent. But I think what's problematic about what we now have is we don't know the costs, but we do know that every time you get involved in an EU scheme or an EU position, you are going to have to contribute. So when people talk about the £9.3 billion a year that we will get by 2040, that, 0.3% of the GDP of the nation, i.e. a very small amount of economic gain, how much is that economic gain going to cost us? And then, of course, what are the conditions that are going to come along? Now, we're going to have to be looking at the small print, but when you start to look at the things that Keir Starmer appears to have signed away without having particularly negotiated very hard, this isn't really pushing on the door. Yes, there will be some benefits. So, for example, fishing. You talk about the negative side, and I think that there will be a huge backlash against what's been done, which is basically freezing those fishing allowances, which means that the allowances that we had that were going to expire next year, that will run on, and that will run on for another 12 years. But the thing is that, yes, there will be some benefit to salmon farmers. They'll be able to export. To shellfish farmers, they'll be able to export. But at what cost?
Animal and plant products.
At what cost?
Well, talk about that for a second, because one of the wins here is to say that we can get our goods into Europe, most especially farmers trying to sell.
Well, we couldn't sell.
Tell us about that.
We couldn't sell sausage and beef burgers, for example.
Right.
We couldn't sell. Now we can. We removed the checks. We can now trade freely with Northern Ireland, Northern Ireland is part of us, and we couldn't trade with them because of the processes that we put in. Ridiculous.
So you say this is a win for farmers?
It's a win for farmers. It's a win for the fishing
industry. And how does that
industry.
equate with the measures that the government have put in respect of, for example, inheritance tax on farmers and farming? You speak to small farmers.
That's apples and pears here.
It's not apples and pears.
But we talk about
you've basically killed off the farming industry because nobody in government seems to understand how farming works.
Well, let's just hear about that for a second.
Decisions.
We've got Denise over in Kent. I don't know if you're a farmer. Do you think this is a win or a disaster?
I think it's a disaster, and I also think that there are some facts being blurted out there about sausages and burgers not being able to be exported. I spend a lot of time in Spain, and my family lives there.
Right.
And we can get sausages and burgers, UK sausages and burgers there.
Well, it's not so much about, sorry to talk over. It's not really about that. It's about how easy it is to get into the European market.
Yeah.
Isn't that right?
It is.
But Carolyn, just respond to Denise.
I mean, the thing is now, everything we export has got so many restrictions on it. A lot of food is just rotting at the border. It's not before it gets to the country. You hear a lot of people saying that they used to be able to buy chocolate, example, from Europe. Now they can't because of the stringent restrictions
rubbish.
to bring it in. Well, this is what I'm being told. So, I'm only saying... I'm repeating.
I mean, this is the problem. Is that yes?
I'm going to interrupt you here. You're going to have to explain this and have this knockdown drag out after the break. Please don't go anywhere. Thanks, Denise, for calling. We're going to be taking more of your calls on this. Is Starmer's EU deal, is it a win for Britain or not? Give us a call with your thoughts. Go to Diane in Cardiff. I've got to go to you, Carolyn. You know, a number of our callers are saying the same thing. It's a question that we're all asking. I mean, there's some detail about fishing in waters and the fact that this is going to be a 12-year extension to what we've already got. The fact that we're going to be able to put our goods into Europe, most especially farming goods, but we're going to have to apply EU rules. When it comes to the rest of the stuff, so the fact that there's going to be a scheme for youth experience, defence and security sharing, a carbon tax, all of that stuff, apart from the fact we're going to be able to go through EU gates when we're going on holiday, the detail is really fuzzy. So there you are. You have Keir Starmer championing this as a win. But what's the actual substance of it? Is this just spin?
No, it's not just spin. And as the days go on, we'll get more and more and more. I mean, what I can tell you about the youth mobility scheme is that it's going to be very similar to the New Zealand-Australia deal, where it's capped and it's time limited. I mean, and I think that deal works really well. It also gives our youngsters the opportunity to go into Europe and work. I mean, the hospitality sector, again, would say to you, one of the things we've missed since Brexit is the ability to be able to employ young people, usually Europeans, to work in our pubs and our clubs and our restaurants. So
did you say it won't have any impact on net migration, bearing in mind we're trying to get that number down?
It won't have any effect because this will be a time-limited, capped scheme, just like we've got with New Zealand and Australia.
Like a 2-year work
like a gap year. That kind of thing.
The question is, when you make rules like that, as is always the way, there are often loopholes that can be exploited. And I suspect there's a lot of people out there thinking, well, as soon as you open the door a little bit, people will push it wide. And that's the worry that a number of people, not least our callers, are deeply concerned about when it comes to this deal. Diane, you're in Cardiff. Is this a good deal, or is it a disaster perhaps for yours and Carolyn's part of our shared nation, Wales?
I think it's a disaster, especially for Wales. We're the poorest country in Britain. Like, we've been ruled by a Labour government for over 20 years. And it's a disaster down here in Wales. I can tell you now, I'm not the only one in Wales thinking like this. There are thousands of us who won't be voting for Labour in the next election or the gender home elections at all.
Well, why is that? Just help me understand that, because we've got Carolyn. Wait a second, we've got Carolyn here. She's a very important figure in our government, especially when it comes to Wales. You got a chance to talk directly to her. Why is that, based on the deal that we had yesterday? Give me a top 3 if you can, Diane.
Well, first of all, our hospitals in Wales. are the worst run hospitals in Britain.
Right.
Our economy is terrible. There's no jobs or houses for young people. It's awful here. It really, really is.
Well, we hear what
and
you
I
say.
think that
You hear what you say,
the Senate,
I've got to move it on. Go on.
They're bringing a load more people into the Senate, which, why? Why do we need over 60 more people running the Senate in Wales? I just really don't get it.
Now, you do wonder, you hear that, it's a disaffected voter. She's right to say Labour's been in power for a long time in Wales. I wonder whether deals like this, especially the deal yesterday, makes a difference to somebody like Diana.
Well, it will, but nothing that Diana said is in any way reflected in that deal. There is nothing there. She talks about the Senedd. It's 36 extra Senedd members, and that's to allow for more scrutiny of the government. She talks about the NHS. Waiting lists are down in Wales. And continue to come down in Wales. She talked about no jobs, no housing. We have built a phenomenal number of houses in Wales, and there are plenty of jobs in Wales, as there are right across the country. Whether or not people want to take those jobs is another matter, but the jobs are there. But there's nothing in this deal that is bothering Diane.
Well, that's an interesting perspective. I'm going to go to Devon, part of the southwest where fishing has an enormous impact on the local economy. Nick, is this a win for Britain, or perhaps, as people are saying, a load of old bollocks?
Hi, Rob, and the panel. Yes. I just wish, to some extent, actually, we don't forget about fishing because it's very important. But as far as I can see, over 50% of the industry or whatever thinks it's a good deal. But this just does not come over. The salmon fishermen and also the shell fishermen that have had real problems actually since Brexit, exporting, having to provide these sort of certificates, particularly the small ones and everything. But I'd like to sort of talk a little bit or speak a little bit up for instance, the food processors, the cheese manufacturers, all these people.
Well, that's an important point, Nick, which we have begun to deal with, the idea that if you're a maker of food, subject to meeting European standards, finally, you can get your goods into our most important trading partner, Europe. And you're not wrong to bring up the point that there is not one voice when it comes to fishermen. There's a difference between fish farming, for instance, and people who are fishing for shellfish, and the deep sea trawlers who are cross about this. I'm going to hold that view there before we go back to the panel. James is a little bit shaking his head. We're going to go up to Cheshire. Disaster or win, Mike?
To go on the side of disaster. I'm old enough to have voted no to joining in the first place, and certainly voted to leave. And I think Mr. Starmer is amongst those who didn't want to leave and did all he could to frustrate it.
So you think this is a way of reversing Brexit by the back door? I have to say, Mike, we've had a lot of callers making that same claim. Last call to you, David in Southampton.
Oh, hello. I don't see why it can't work.
Oh, I hear you.
Hello?
I can hear you, David. You don't see why it can't work.
I can't see why it can't work.
Right.
I mean, the reason I've rung is because we've gone back to the old thing again, Brexit, 4% and all this.
Right.
The Brexiteers, I mean, is there a Brexiteer that could admit that it's been an unequivocal disaster?
I hear what you say. Well, we hear what you say. I'm going to go to the panel now. Thanks for calling in. What David is ostensibly saying is that, Brexit was a disaster. It's called economic catastrophe. And if you are somebody that voted against Brexit and you're a Remainer, this is a good deal.
Look, if you wanted to stay in the EU, then sure, I get it. I understand. Brexit has not been this great disaster that people talk about because there are so many other things which have frustrated it. which means that if you really want to get our economy going, you need to talk about and look at our tax system, which we've made increasingly expensive for people to deal with. You want to have a look at how we're treating with farming.
That's got nothing to do with Brexit.
It has got everything to do with Brexit, because if you want to capitalise from Brexit and you want to make this country a great place to do business, then you have to have a good tax regime.
Sure.
They haven't done it.
They could have set their tax regime regardless of Brexit. But let's park that for a second.
Starmer hasn't.
I want to go. Yeah, but it's nothing to do with Brexit. I want to go to Southport. Of course it hasn't. We go to Southampton. David, what's your view? Excuse me, Dale in Southampton. Excuse me, Dale in Devon. Forgive me.
Yeah, Devon. I'm in Brixham.
Oh, there we are. Well, we'll get it right at some point. Wherever you are, you're in South London, so we got the South right. What's your view? Is it a win or a lose?
It's a lose, but it's more the democracy side of it, where we voted to leave. I voted to leave.
Right.
And basically, with Starmer not even put it through the Commons. He's not done what he wants to do.
I'm struggling to hear you. I'm so sorry, but effectively, what you're sharing with us is the voice of what a lot of people are on the phone saying, is that we voted for leave, and this is a punch in the face to everybody who voted democratically for us to be away at an arm's length from European rules. You've spoken to the fact that these rules are important. Finally, we can get our goods into the country, and you've got something to say about tax, which doesn't make any sense to me, but we will come back to this.
Starmer's done a Del Boy on us.
I hear you, but lots of callers agree with you. Some of them don't. Thank you.